I guess the starting soon isn't working at this time. That's fun. I'll play with that later. uh, so let's dive in. Welcome to What the Decks, where over the course of a lunch hour, we take the idea for a deck build from Lunchbox to Deckbox. I'm your host, Skylar, and today we're tackling Grashrak's Despoilers plus Voidcursed Thralls, as requested by two viewers. That's Caiaphas Kane, who reached out to me via Discord, specifically requested builds with Grashrak's Despoiler, and Krebel, who reached out via YouTube. So in the comments below, that's all it takes, and requested Grashrak's Despoiler specifically with Voidcursed Thralls, which had been one of the pairings I had offered to Caiaphas Kane over Discord too, as we were chatting. If I were to do an episode on Grashrak's Despoilers, what would you like that to look like? I think that there could be play with Voidcursed Thralls, and then it was really fun to see a second request for Grashrax, and for that request to specifically be Voidcursed Thralls. So here we go. And before we dive into that today, first we'll be tackling a field report covering the Gale Force Frighters. So they're the latest fresh build from What the Decks. So that was 2 weeks ago. And that deck saw 6 games. That deck was played 3 times by our resident Exiled Dead mastermind, Wellner, and 3 games by myself. And we decided that was enough data to bring you the field report today. So Wellner specifically played against Skittershank's Clawpack, Mollog's Mob, and my Vampires. Specifically, the Bloodthirsty Hosts built here on the channel, which is a deck that I have continued to enjoy. I love that build. I definitely recommend checking that video out and giving that deck a spin. So Wellner won against those first 2, Clawpack and Mollog's Mob, lost against my Vamps. And then I ran up against Miari's Purifiers, which was a loss. And they were running Rhymeworm's Bite. We'll get into that. Thundrix Profiteers plus Rhymelock's Relics. I won that one. And then Skinnerkin plus Voidcursed Thralls, which was a loss as well from me. So 2 wins and a loss from Wellner, 2 losses and a win from me. Puts them at about 3 and 3 wins and losses for today's report. And first off, I think it's pretty cool that Wellner was able to take his games against Clawpack and Mollog's Mob. I think that speaks volumes for 2 different aspects here. One, Wellner's skill with Exiled Dead, because those are incredibly difficult matchups, and he has put, I think, more time on Exiled Dead than any other human on this face of this planet. So I think that his time spent on them was able to show against these traditionally difficult matchups for him. And the other aspect I think it highlights is that this deck could go toe-to-toe with some of its hardest matchups. I know these are best of ones, so we always kind of feel like best of threes is the best way to collect data on how you're performing against a particular warband, against a particular pairing. So dice could go one way in a game, card draw could go one way in a game. You could be feeling things out, and sometimes that first game can really catch you off guard. Maybe you longboard and you shouldn't have, or you're longboarded and it's difficult to reach. It doesn't always have to be a longboard situation. Maybe you think that you're playing passive and they're playing beatdown, and you realize, oh no, it's flipped, right? That's stuff that comes from a best of one that you're able to learn from and carry through a best of 3. You learn so much in that first game. I like to think of it as a discovery game. And in these cases, all 6 of these games were best of ones. Let's see here. Jacob, I will say that Skittershank, by all rights, should have won a lot of whiffed attacks on Phil's part in the final round. See, there you have it. And that's one of the things I love about this game is there are so many determining moments in any game that kind of coalesce towards a final score. Sometimes the dice are contributors to those moments. I mean, anytime you attack and defend, anytime you roll a spell, anytime dice get into the mix, of course they're contributing factors. But I think that when you're playing Underworlds, for the most part, especially over a best of three, but for the most part, everything pivots around consistently good play, and like consistently good moments or big moments. Like they all feel like little big moments over the course of 12 of your activations, 12 of their activations, 3 rounds. All the card play that you're sowing in the middle of there, like it's a game that captures so many like moments that could be pivotal, and so they finally all coalesce, and you get that final score at the end. And it's one of the things that like constantly hooks me and keeps me enjoying this game is that I always walk away with something that felt like a pivotal moment in games, and I always walk away with things to learn, and I think that's really important. Like if you are looking to become a better player, then when you walk away from losses, especially, losses should be like learning opportunities. What could I have done better there, despite the dice, or despite the long board, or I guess in spite of the long board. How could I have navigated that better? Things like that. So really cool. That's anecdotal. So, or at least a tangential path that we could spend more time on. But we'll instead finish out a field report here and move on to our build of the day. I think that's what that really goes to show is that this build had play. In fact, the 2 games I lost were extremely close. So Miari's Purifiers with Rhymeworm's Bite, it was really funny. I lose this by 1 point, and it was so frustrating because I lose 6 points, if you will. So like I'm up 5 or so, like, and we're in the final round. He's just got Miari's left, and I have 2 fighters that are vulnerable. And what I don't realize is they're within 2 of another fighter in the middle of them that I have. That's a full health, 2 health, just one of the zombies. And Miari comes in, does 2 damage to that fighter, which ends up being like a perfect, killing somebody with a perfect value. That's a surge. So there's 2 glory, and then he has Aether Quartz still on Miari, so he's able to spend the Aether Quartz to fuel a ping that can reach out from him. It's one of the elemental cards that they have, and hit 2 targets within 2 of him for 1 damage each, killing 2 more zombies, which is another 2 glory, so 4 glory. Scores a card, and then like scores 2 more surges for 1 glory a piece. I can't remember exactly which ones they were, but like for taking fighters down this way, right? I think one of them was for using an elemental to fuel a ploy. And then the other one was for taking fighters down with gambit damage. So it was like 1 activation, 1 turn, because we had the activation and the power step there. So 1 full turn in space of 6 glory. And I was like, I thought I had this game. And then instantly that flipped the script and I lost it by 1 point. And I still would have won it if I had one of the card swaps that we're going to talk about today. So I'll jump into that because this is also the difference in the Skinnerkin game, and that's Meat Locker. Meat Locker was the hardest objective in this deck. So let's just remind folks what Meat Locker was. Score this in an end phase if each surviving enemy fighter is in enemy territory and each surviving friendly minion is in enemy territory. So, what makes this hard, like especially hard, is you can't table them and score it. So each surviving enemy fighter is in enemy territory. Now, I did score this in one of my games. That was the game I won, Thunder's Profiteers. And if this had been fastest around, I still would have scored it in that game. And so this should be fastest around. Because the game plan when you're playing Breakneck Slaughter with the zombies here is to kill them. So fastest around, score this in end phase if each surviving friendly fighter is in enemy territory and there are no enemy fighters in your territory. So the difference here is Meat Locker says each surviving enemy fighter, right? So there has to be at least one surviving enemy fighter for Meat Locker to be scored. So that means that not only is there one fighter, but that fighter is then in a specific location, and all of your fighters are in specific locations. So in the game versus Miari, I actually would have scored this in round 2, but I missed multiple attacks against Spahanar. He was the only fighter on that team that was hanging out in my territory. And so missing those multiple attacks against him meant I wasn't able to get my minions over the line. I actually had I had cards in hand that could help push me. So like, for example, I had Sparking Shuffle in my hand. I had cards to help push me into position for it after I got the kill against Bahanar, but I didn't get the kill, so I couldn't meet that first thing. And then round 3, I have to kill Miari, and after I kill Miari, it's like Meat Locker can't score anymore, which was a problem. And let's see. So, and Miari was not in my territory either. So, like, I had to deal with him regardless. At that point in time, he'd moved into enemy territory. And then fastest around, there are no enemy fighters in your territory. So there can be 0 surviving enemy fighters towards contributing twos. There's none of them in my territory. Good job, us. And I think that's fastest around has a little bit of give and take here where so when I was attempting to score Meat Locker, I could leave Diantelos behind the line just a little bit. Now, often that wasn't the case. As we talked about in the build episode, I actually wanted Diantelos in their territory to promote keeping them in their territory, and that's how I played towards it. But then Markov, I didn't need to bring him in. I just needed to get Regulus in, which is why we brought Translocating Step as well, to help us cheat Regulus across a long distance to get him in for Meat Locker when we look to score that. So we're going to be getting rid of Translocating Step as well. We don't need this card. So this is going to require all of our surviving fighters are in their territory, but pretty much it's going to be like, have you killed them or at least corralled them into their territory by the end of the game. And if you've completely tabled them, you still have something that you can score. And you need that for how much you're bleeding over the rounds. You can't really rely on a card that's going to punish you for stopping them from farming you. So I think that's enough said on Meat Locker there. It was the difference in the Skinnerkin match as well. I would have taken that game if I was able to score Meat Locker at the end. But it was another scenario where they're in enemy territory and I have to kill them, and I don't have enough tricks to push them, knock them back, things like that, into their own territory. So that's the first swap. Absolutely. That's also the hardest objective. The other hard objective, so that's always one of the things I like to cover. Definitely not Gale Force. Gale Force was amongst the easiest objectives. Again, with alternating strikes, these cards flowed like butter. They were super fun to have. But Direct Strike, score this immediately after a friendly fighter's attack action that deals 3 or more damage. So this was definitely the hardest surge. But I still managed to score it in at least 2 out of 3 of the games, and it still felt fine. Like, I don't think that we get rid of it for another surge. I mean, we've already made the decision that the other surges are so much harder that we don't even have a 6th surge. I think Direct Strike is fine. I think it's just worth calling out that, yeah, it's difficult. And how did it test, right? Well, I thought it tested fine because you have 2 ploys helping you out with that in Scorching Surge and Devastating Charge. So these can help you with it early, as well as the combo of Diantelos and he doesn't even need to be inspired, Diantelos and Coil. If you can get the Stacker off, then Coil with that +1 damage on Overload, attacking a staggered fighter. So right out of the gate, you have like potentially 3 different tools, in 2 ploys and coil with Diantelos to secure direct strike. And I think that that's worthwhile. You also have Markov once he's inspired that can help you out with that. So Markov gets to 2 damage with Grievous, and you have some upgrades as well. So for example, Dynamic Enhancer can help you get to that 3 damage as well. And this can start working with the other zombies and Overload to push them even further. So I think Direct Strike gets a pass. It just is hard. Some of the best cards in the pairing were Slick Ice. It was as fun as I'd hoped it to be. It's a blast being able to say, yeah, so for this round, anytime you charge, which I know you want to do, you're, going to suffer momentum for it, which is potentially going to get me staggered targets and then help me put damage down. Like, that's a blast because every time I'm dancing or puppeteering, then, well, okay, so not puppeteering, but I danced twice or multiple times in the rounds with Slick Ice. After a fighter's charge super action, give that fighter 1 momentum counter, right? So if you use puppeteer with Regulus, for example, Regulus is still going to suffer from Slick Ice if you're charging him. But as long as you're dancing around, no, nobody cares. So it's pretty comical being like, and the field is ice, and we're gonna dance, and you're gonna slip a ton. Hilarious, good fun. Devastating Charge is another card to call out that was really great. Choose a friendly fighter, give the chosen fighter 2 momentum counters, +1 damage to that fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions in the next activation step. Just wanted to call this out as a fun card because it works with Scything. And the last card I'll call out for fun is Running Rings. This card I find to generally be difficult in Breakneck Slaughter decks. And when we were building, I said, I think the funny thing about this build is Running Rings is going to be the easy Breakneck Slaughter 2-pointer, and Eager for the Fight is going to be the hard one. And I was really glad I did not have Eager for the Fight. I think managing that would have been an absolute pain in the butt. But Running Rings was like totally free every time it came up. It was a really, really nice card. So what other swaps would I make? So we've already decided that we would swap out Meat Locker for fastest around. I would also swap out Dance of Diantelos for Corpse-like Glove for 2 reasons. One, I think on first read during the show, it did not register for me that Dance works on each friendly inspired conductive fighter. So what that ends up meaning is I'm not able to, as the game goes on and zombies have died, to get as much gas out of this card as I would if I'd got it in like round 1 before zombies had died. So not only do I have to roll 2 channels on 2 magic dice to score, or to use this card, which I did, by the way. The first time I tried to cast it, it worked, and I laughed really hard because of how much I hate magic and dislike when things like that don't go off. And it just felt like, there was no way it was going to work. It didn't for the other 2 games I played, but for that one first time I cast it, it worked well. But even if you were to be able to cast this, it really depends on when you draw it, on how valuable it's going to be. Round 1, awesome. Round 3, probably not so much. So I think it's worth getting rid of and putting in Corpse-like Globe. How do I spell Corpse-like Globe? Oh, I think I have it filtered right now. Yeah, that's why. All right, so Corpse-like Globe, Gambit spell, Focus. If cast, choose 1 enemy fighter adjacent to 1 or more friendly conductive minions. You can reroll 1 attack dice in attack rolls for friendly conductive fighters. Attack actions that target the chosen fighter. This effect persists until the end of the phase or until the chosen fighter is taken out of action. So this is going to help you put damage down, but it's also giving you a 1 dice result spell to help you with Stench of Dynamism, which I scored in each of my games. And I think that this card works well with the support that we have here. I never had a problem with it. You have your spell attack from Diantelos that you're going to be trying at least once, if not twice, in a round. So you have a spell attack with good range on it. In fact, we brought Dynamic Bolt with us to have a better version of it available as well. And this was really fun. I liked this card. So we have spell attacks to support it already baked into the fighter. And we also had Prison of Grief that can help from Markov or Diantelos, and 3 spells. I think there's enough coverage there for Stench of Dynamism. You really just need like 1 spell attack or Prison of Grief, and then to draw into and succeed on one of these spell gambits. At least that's what it felt like, and that felt good. Oh, sorry, it's cast 3. It still felt good. 2 would be banger. Everybody would be bringing it. But I think there's enough support, and especially with the Corpse-like Globe swap in. And then Translocating Step for Living Hurricane would be my last swap here. So Living Hurricane is something that I wish I got a chance to experiment with before making the recommendation. It was the last card that we cut when we did the build together, and I think it definitely deserves to go back in. Being able to add Stagger back into the zombie mash, so if Diantelos' attack misses, you have another individual that could get Stagger going, and then increase the other zombies' attacks, the damage, like, is worth the penalty of then that zombie suffering momentum going forward after they move. I think it's a card that you have to time well, but I think it's going to be easier to find moments where this is going to be helpful compared to Translocating Steps. So, all right, well, that is going to be our field report for the Gale Force Fighters. And from here, we jump into our build for Grashrak's Despoilers plus Voidcursed Thralls. So let me clear our deck editor and load in the new pairing here. So for those who don't know, Grashrak's Despoilers are from the Beastgrave core box. This is the core box I started the game on, and Skace Wild Hunt was the warband I pulled out and played. So, what am I looking for? No, I think we got everything we need pulled up. Yep, and I hit refresh data again anyways. I wanted it to feel double refreshed. So, Voidcursed Thralls, again, is going to be our pairing today. Let's throw a card in so that we can take a look at these fighters. So, why Voidcursed Thralls? So, it was indeed, what Krebel was looking for us to pair with today, but it was something like that I had already been conversing with Caiaphas Cain about, and the reason I think it's a good pairing here is, so right at the gate you'll notice everybody starts on 1 dodge. So as soon as they get Voidcursed, we actually have some benefit waiting for us. Just going to filter and toss our Voidcurse in here. For those unfamiliar with Voidcurse, we're just going to go over this quick. This is a plot card. At the start of a round, if there are no surviving friendly Voidcursed fighters, choose 1 surviving friendly fighter. The chosen fighter is Voidcursed. So anytime at the beginning of a round, so this includes the start of the game, there isn't a Voidcursed friendly fighter, you will be making one. Voidcursed fighters cannot make actions other than move actions, attack actions, stun, barge, or charge. And Voidcursed fighters cannot make range 3+ attack actions, so no ranged shots. Voidcursed fighters cannot be driven back. That's a benefit. That's good. We want that. And Voidcursed fighters have a defensive characteristic of 1 shield. That's also something that we want in this pairing. Now, fighters that have characteristic of 2 anything, don't really want to be brought down to 1. But here we're looking at 1 dodge across most of our fighters, so that's a lot of upside for us. And then the other thing is, I know that these fighters, they go down pretty easily, right? We're looking at like 2 health on 3 of these fighters. They have a little bit of hold play built in. And so when we're pairing them with Voidcursed Thralls, not only are we giving them a defensive benefit, but we're elevating, I think they have cards that score off of death or an amount dead. If I'm wrong, we'll find out together. But Voidcursed Thralls brings cards like that, and we can use those. And then Voidcursed Thralls is actually going to help them not being able to be driven back, and that's going to elevate their ability to hold. So I don't think Grashrax is the like most competitive warband out there, but I think that as far as pairings go for them, I think this is going to be amongst like the better things that we could try to build for them today. They have a lot of like challenges that we're going to be trying to overcome. Again, looking at that 1 dodge, looking at the 2 health. But if we can kind of embrace the fact that they're dying, get them into spots quickly to get them holding and get what we need from them, I think we can do enough. I'm looking forward to testing this one. Alex, friend of the show, normally I talk about him with Kagras. He's played a good bit of these fellows as well, and I'm hoping I can talk him into giving this build a try once we're done, so that we'll have 2 points of effort going into next week's or the next field report on our next build. So the other thing that's, you know, one of those points of struggle that we're going to have to overcome with them is they have a terrible inspire mechanic, and it's across the whole warband, which is a bummer. So 2 or more enemy fighters are out of action. Now, this is like incredibly matchup dependent. If you're up against, like for example, Thorns of the Briar Queen, that's, you know, a 7-fighter warband, or you're up against the 9-fighter warband, the Gits, Zarbag's Gits. There we go. You might be able to really, you know, quickly get your 2 kills and get your warband inspired, and that's awesome in those cases. But in your more elite matchups, you're up against 3 fighter warbands, 4-fighter warbands. This is going to be a really hard inspire. And so I think that we kind of almost have to build as if we're not going to see our inspire, or if we do, it's going to be late game. So that's something we got to keep in mind. I wish we had an ability to cheat an inspire, like a ploy or an upgrade. I don't think they do. We'll find out again together. I know the Voidcursed Thrall is part of this pairing really well. I don't know them. So this is going to be a lot of discovery together. What I do know is that Grashrak here starts the game with, here, I'm going to zoom in a little more on these fighter cards here at the beginning. Yeah, those show up all right. So Grashrak here at the start of the game, and whenever an enemy fighter is taken out of action, put a ritual counter on this card. Sweet. Okay, so right at the beginning, we're going to get one of these ritual counters, and as a reaction, during a friendly fighter's attack action, before the attack roll, remove a ritual counter from this card. So before we've done our attack, we can choose to commit a ritual token, and if you do, you can reroll 1 dice in that attack roll. So we have like an on-demand reroll for every time we take a head, and we're spotted 1 at the beginning of the game. All right, so then Grashrak and Drakner are looking for 2 hammers on range 1. They're the only ones that accurate at the beginning. Nobody even goes up to 3 swords, so we don't have anybody like marginally better with those 3 dice looking for crits. So these are our strongest fighters. We're going to want to keep them safe. And anytime we attack with these 2 swords fighters, we're probably going to want to try to get them some sort of support, or we might have to use that reroll. We'll see. Even if we were, I don't really want to use a ritual counter unless it's like make or break on a 2 swords roll, if I don't have some sort of support to offer them. But let's see. So once we inspire, what do these fellows have to offer? Korsh, by the way, is the only one that has an ability outside of Grashrak. So that's if this fighter is in an edge hex and has no move tokens. So they can have a charge token, just not a move token. Place them in any hex and give them a charge token. All right. So, and what's nice about that too is you can cheat their charged out. It is a full action, but if he wasn't going to be able to reach anybody anyways, and you need him charged out and he's hanging out on an edge hex, you can use this to get your warband charged out. But so once we inspire, our main 2 fighters, they gain cleave. Their defense does not get better. And Draknar just becomes a little more accurate with his 3 dice there for swords, and Grashrak grabs a level 2 wizard level. And then our defense continues to not improve across Morgoth, Ushkar, and Gnarl. Korsh does go up to 2 dodge, so that's good. So Korsh is probably not somebody we ever really want to void curse, because we'll take away his action, and we'll take away his potential for 2 dice defense. But everybody else, totally fair game for void cursing. And pretty much everybody is what they're grabbing on their inspired side is that 3rd dice somewhere along the way for their sword attacks. That's about it. So not too much to work with outside of bodies. And so we need their cards to make up for it. And we'll see if they make up for it together. Diving in. So let's close that plot card out here. Grab a sip of coffee. A little more than a sip. I decided that I wasn't really going to be revisiting that too much, so why not just kill it? All right, here we go. So, let's start with surges. Let's go ahead and Bestial Cunning. Score this immediately when you play your 3rd or subsequent gambit in a single round. I like this. Gambits include ploys and spells. Man, I want to like this more. Okay, so I recently was playing a bit of what are they called? Grimwatch. I was playing Grimwatch with Rhymelock Relics, and they have the same surge, and it can be really rough if you like. We'll see if there's any draw tech in here. If there's draw tech, it improves the scenario like immensely. A lot of these cards used to be run with dual wits. Dual wits is a universal that was available in the championship format that said, as a reaction to my opponent playing a ploy, I think it was ploy or gambit, but I would bet money it was ploy. You can draw 2 cards in response, and it itself was a ploy. So all of a sudden we're 1 towards the count, and we have drawn another 2 cards to help make sure that we have a good fixing of what we need. Loved that card. I miss dual wits. So we'll keep Bestial Cunning in here. It's not a bad surge, but one of the worst like gameplay decision moments can be, all right, I think I really need to score Bestial Cunning. I only have 2 ploys in my hand right now. I will draw a 3rd one. And then you spend your turn venturing. So you draw 1 power card, you draw an upgrade. It's like, oh, okay. Well, I've now wasted a turn. I'm no closer. And I have no idea if I venture again, it'll pan out. And so like you could sink even more actions into decisions that don't get you this card. Another reason this card can be rough, or cards like it, is because you then you feel you have to spend all 3 of those ploys or gambits in this case kind of at once, or at least early. It's a surge. You want to see what else you can score. Do you need to have some sort of end phase considerations? Is there more that you can do with your remaining activations if you spend your ploys now towards this card? But is playing those gambits like all together quickly the best course of action? Or if you save those for more key moments, could you get more mileage out of them? And so you're kind of sacrificing mileage for a seed glory, assuming you even drew 3. And those, I mean, gambits are generally like really valuable since you don't have to spend glory towards them. Like a good starting hand in most games is like 2, 3, even 4, gambits and 1 upgrade. Very often am I like looking for more than 2 upgrades in an opening hand. I want that value in making decisions with my gambits. So there's a lot on Bestial Cunning, and it's just a card that I've seen a lot of cards like it and tried them recently with Grimwatch. So I've been thinking about them a lot. Congress has a card, and Alex and I talk about this when it comes to how much that surge can be dependent on draw order and can kind of hurt his overall game plan sometimes. But they hurt for, card slots there. So they bring it anyways. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. All right. So on to the next card. Despoilers. Score this immediately after an activation if your warband holds 3 or more objectives. Immediately after an activation, so this can be immediately after your activation, we're bringing movement tricks with us because we're bringing Voidcursed Thralls. We're increasing our defense. We're saying no drive back. Yes, Despoilers is definitely something we're going towards. And we're going to try to bring as many ploys, gambits as we can to support this. And we'd much rather spend those gambits supporting Despoilers instead of supporting Bestial Cunning, especially for 2 glory. Killing Blow. Score this immediately when a friendly fighter's attack action that targets a fighter that has no wound tokens takes the target fighter out of action. So your friendly fighter targets a fighter that has no wound tokens and takes the fighter out of action. So at the beginning of the game, most of your fighters are dealing 2 damage. Draknar is dealing 3. So if they have 3 health fighters, then Draknar is the only one that can go for it. But if you need to chip damage them, let's say they have 4 health fighters only, then this isn't scoreable without some sort of card support. And that's really tricky. I don't think Killing Blow is going to be a card that we want to bring. We're going to want to be able to take our attacks when we can and chip damage them. And we might take something like Voidcursed Assault or Unbearable Energies, which is going to do damage in the power steps. So we're going to pass on Killing Blow. Raiders. Score this immediately after an activation if 3 or more friendly fighters are in enemy territory. Okay, so just a positional card. It's a risky place to be, but it's asking not much of us. How do I feel about this? So we have 6 fighters, so at least half of them are still alive, and of those still alive, I've managed to get 3 of them over to their territory. Yeah, I don't hate Raiders. I think we can take it. It's definitely gonna be an early game card. It might even be one. I don't think it's gonna be one I strictly mulligan for. If I have better surges in hand, but stuff like this always ends up being a part of your mulligan decision a little bit, right? When it's well, I'm iffy on this hand, and because I'm iffy, maybe I search for 3 new cards and hope that Raiders is in them because Raiders is going to be better earlier than later. Maybe. Well, putting a big question mark around this slot. Their fragility is what's responsible for that question mark. Stampede. Score this immediately when a 3rd or subsequent friendly fighter makes a charge action in the same phase. Okay. Makes a charge action in the same phase. So it's similar to Raiders, but I think I like Stampede better than Raiders because I've got 2 fighters with range 3. Yeah. So I think right away, if I was going to keep one of these fighters that was looking at essentially three fighters being alive and available, I think Stampede wins over Raiders. But on to the Voidcursed Thrall surge. So we only had 5 surges to choose from there, which means we're going to have 1 extra end phase to look at. So that'll be nice. Gather Thralls. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation step if 3 or more Voidcursed fighters are adjacent to each other, and 1 or more of those fighters are enemy fighters. I've always wanted to try leaning into this card in different builds. This one's going to depend a lot on how much push tech we have available to us. We'll keep it. We'll think about it. It's worth 2 glory, so I think it's always worth thinking about. It's an opponent's activation. That part makes this harder. And so if they sense it coming, they can usually kill part of the equation, which is one of the reasons why this card usually gets filtered out for me. On to Involuntary Interdiction. So score this immediately after a Voidcursed fighter's attack action that takes the target out of action. We're going to bring this. There's a trick with this. We'll go over the trick. But it hinges mainly off the fact that it can be any Voidcursed fighter. So it can be enemy Voidcursed fighters. So if we can get somebody Voidcursed and then they kill one of us, and it's likely, look at our stats, then at least we'll get a glory for it. And if we have a Voidcursed fighter that does the work, awesome. Go you. Here's an extra point. So Lashed into Motion. Score this immediately after the third or subsequent move made by friendly Voidcursed fighters in the same phase. We're going to take this along until we understand how much move and push tech we have. If we lean more towards move tech, then we can really consider Lashed into Motion. And this is additive across all of your Voidcursed fighters. This isn't a single Voidcursed fighter. So if we start spreading the curse amongst our own, then as they're making moves, maybe even as part of charges, they're helping contribute to Lashed into Motion. Perfect Thrall. I think this is an... we can't make ranged attacks. Funny. So Oshkar and Gnarl, we probably don't want to Voidcurse them. So your initial Voidcurse targets are Grashrak, Drakner, and Murgroth. Oshkar and Gnarl, if you Voidcurse them, you're going to lose their range 3 attacks. I was just about to say, we can take Perfect Thrall because we have Oshkar and Gnarl, but no, we really don't, because then we're removing what makes them special. The fact that they can offer us a charge and getting into a position, that's up to 3 away. So we probably don't want to bring Perfect Thrall because we don't have any range 2. Perfect Thrall is really good when you have range 2. So a friendly Voidcursed fighter is holding an objective, and that fighter made one or more successful attack actions in that activation step. So you got to be on an objective, and you have to have made a successful attack. And so that means that somebody was within range of that attack from that objective as well. That's why range 2 helps a lot there. We're going to pass on Perfect Thrall. Surrendered Will. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation step if one or more enemy fighters are Voidcursed. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and take that. If we can just Voidcurse somebody, then after an opponent's activation step, we will score. And Tipping Point. Scores immediately after an activation step if there are more surviving Voidcursed fighters than surviving fighters that are not Voidcursed. I find this card to be very hard. You have to be leaning super hard into aggro and the Voidcurse. And so the Battle Mallet actually called this game plan Tag-Row. And that's because you're tagging people, as many as you can, with Voidcurse, and you're aggroing down the people that don't have Voidcurse. And if you can say confidently that you're going to be playing Tag-Row well, then Tipping Point's for you. If not, then you got to leave it out. And I think our aggro side of this is going to be really rough. But that's okay. We have 8 objectives available for selection. I don't like Raiders, so we're probably getting rid of Raiders. I'm probably not going to be able to justify Gathered Thralls. So we're looking at Involuntary Interdiction and Surrendered Will as good surges from Voidcurse Thralls. Lashed into Motion as a maybe. I think it'll come down to Lashed into Motion versus Gathered Thralls. But on to our objectives. So we might have a third end phase here. Nope, we don't. Because it was from a time in the game where those were pretty common. But we don't. So let's set this to higher glory first. We could go for a reshaped realm plan. Anytime I build a deck like this, where I know our fighters are going to be dying, and I'm going to be trying to get Voidcurse spread around as much as possible, I at least consider it. It's 4 points. It's worth seeing if you think it's something you can pull off. It's not really going to be something that we can make a final decision on until we see the full rest of the puzzle pieces come into play. So, Bloodshed. Score this in end phase if 3 or more enemy fighters are out of action. For 2 glory, that's really hard. It can be okay, but it can also be kill all of them. And I don't think that we are the best killers. So I think we're going to unfortunately need to pass on Bloodshed. Proven Superiority. All right. Proven superiority. Score this in the end phase if an enemy leader, or if any enemy leaders are out of action and your leader is not out of action. So we have an assassination card here. We need to kill them and we need to stay alive with our leader. Our leader is one of our better damage pieces. I don't know if we can really afford to play too safe with one of our few like damage pieces, especially if we need to kill an enemy leader. So I think we're going to need to pass once again on a 2-pointer here, which is sad. I don't want to pass on too many of these, but in this case, I think we have to. And score this in an end phase if there are 1 or more surviving friendly fighters and 5 or more fighters are out of action. All right, here we go. So 5 or more fighters are out of action. It does not care from whomst these fighters are. There are 6 of you. This card has kind of already accounted for that on its own. If there's just 1 of you alive and 5 of you are dead, well, first off, you've given up 5 glory. So, but second, why don't we pay you 2 glory for your trouble? So you're just going to score 2 glory off of that scenario. Now, the more of them you can take down and add to that 5 fighters are dead count, the better. I think this card is really fun. I love these types of aggro cards, and we're definitely going to try it in here, and we're going to bring uncounted costs to pair with it. So uncounted cost, we'll jump straight to it, did I just... No, I thought I clicked something that messed up the sort. Uncounted cost, score this in an end phase if 4 or more fighters are out of action. So survival of the fittest is looking for 5, and uncounted cost is looking for 4. And and 2 or more of those fighters are Voidcursed. So if we can score survival of the fittest, then hopefully we can also score uncounted cost. It'd be really fun if we got them both in the same hand together when they meet those requirements. Forbidding Thralls, score this in an end phase if 2 or more friendly fighters are Voidcursed and each surviving enemy fighter is in enemy territory. So this would be playing like territory. What was I gonna say? Like corral. But there was a different word, and I've lost it. I just don't like cards like this where I have to control which territory my enemy is in. When there's 3 territories and they have activations and cards to change that math. Now, if you're going to get somebody who's playing passively and they don't want to change that math, this could force them out. So if you think your local meta is really passive, cards like this will take advantage of that. But it's a meta call. And that could pull one of their fighters out. So they're thinking, oh, I'll stop forbidding Thralls. But then they've also given you a target and you get to collapse on that target. But I think that we're probably going to be timidly taking the fight to them. Well, no, let me take that back. I think as soon as people see that we're playing Grashrak's Despoilers, if they know Grashrak's Despoilers at all, or they see our stat lines, they're just going to, there's going to be 2 trains of thought. There's going to be those players that are just like, oh, I'm just going to do my game plan as is, even if that is a passive game plan. There are going to be other players who are like, oh, well, I'm going to go over there and kill them because they're pretty squishy. I feel a lot of people will switch to playing the beatdown. Whenever you hear me or anybody in the community refer to a player as the beatdown, it's a game slang term for they're going to be the aggressive player of this game. They're going to be the one that needs to do like killing and getting bounties to overcome like maybe a passive. Like very often the thought process is one player is beat down and one player is is the passive player, and so you can kind of decide between you two which one is going to score the most if they just do nothing, or at least not interact with the enemy, right? Maybe they just grab some specific positions, whether those are within X of fighters, cards like that, or if it's like holding objectives, things like that. Walking through like the stagger field when you're playing Hungarian Parasite, and that's your Parasite fighter. They've just gained 1 glory for doing so. They didn't need to come interact with you. Stuff like that. If you can add it up to a passive amount that you think is going to outscore your opponent, then you can sit on your laurels and make them come to you. And that player that's sitting on their laurels is the passive player. The other one has to come and be the beatdown to disrupt that. They will lose if they let the other player play passively. So that's kind of running down what the term beatdown means. And forbidding Thralls, I don't think is going to work well here. I think most people are going to realize that when they're up against you, that they can come farm you. So yeah. On to Threatening Presence. Threatening Presence is good, and I think that we are going to try for it here. So how are we doing? Yeah, we're doing all right. We do have Reshape Realm kind of bloating this, but Survival of the Fittest, Threatening Presence, and Uncounted Cost I think are all good cards towards this equation. Score this in end phase if there are more friendly fighters in 2 or more territories than there are enemy fighters in those territories. We've talked about how some of this deck is going to hinge on move and push. This is another piece of that puzzle that's going to hinge on move or push, and we're starting with 6 fighters. So hopefully we have enough fighters where we can outnumber in our territory and either no one's or theirs, especially if they're invading. Then we're probably outnumbering them in our own, and then like tiptoeing just over the line or sitting on the line. And then Blood Ritual. Score this in an end phase if there are 2 or more ritual counters on your leader's fighter card. So this is giving you 1 glory for not using your ritual counter and for getting another ritual counter. I don't know if we have cards that grant ritual counters. We can take it along and take a look. If there aren't cards that grant ritual counters, though, we don't take this. So we want to use those and hope for successful attacks. And so holding them is probably not the play, unless we really want to super build passively, and that's the whole point, which we could consider as well. Like right now, not much is aggressive. So, I mean, Raiders is really aggressive. I'm going to cut it right now. Stampede, yeah, sure, it's aggressive, but the fact that we have 2 fighters with bows gives us some distance, gives us some safety, doesn't necessarily make it feel all too aggressive. Gathered Thralls isn't aggressive or defensive. It just is its own unique positional thing. So right now, we need to die a little bit to support Survival of the Fittest and Uncounted Costs. And we need some positioning. So we could afford, to play passively and go for something like Blood Ritual. But that is, it's only 1 glory. So we'll see if there's other better stuff available to us. Conquerors, score this in end phase if your warband holds 1 or more objectives in enemy territory. That is aggressive, but it could just be over the line. It is end phase though. We'll think about it. Again, dependent on how much move or push deck we have. Swarm the battlefield, score this in end phase if there are 1 or more friendly fighters in each of the following: your territory, enemy territory, and no one's territory. So because we have 6 fighters and this is requiring 3 different positions, I think we have to pass on this. If we lose half of our fighters, then this dictates exactly where all of those remaining fighters have to be, and we need a little more flexibility than that, especially for 1 point. If it was 2 points, we'd be taking this. Taint of Ruin, score this in an end phase if your warband casts 2 or more spells in the preceding action phase. We don't have any spells baked into our wizard. He starts on level 1. We're going to pass on Taint of Ruin. 1 glory is not worth that. Unceasing Imperative, we're going to take this for sure. Score this in an end phase if each surviving Voidcursed fighter from 1 or more warbands each has 1 or more move and or charge tokens. So have you gotten some sort of move action off on the Voidcursed fighter on your side, or have you managed to pass Voidcursed over to their side and anybody you've passed it to is meeting that move or charge token requirement for you here. And then Unwitting Guardians, score this in end phase if 1 or more friendly Voidcursed fighters are on feature tokens. So this doesn't even have to be an objective, very likely will be, but doesn't have to be, and doesn't have to be in enemy territory. So strictly better than Conquerors. So I'm going to cut Conquerors. Well, hold on. We'll hold Conquerors until the final picture, because like we might be going for Reshaped Realm, but still undecided on that. So that might be a cut. That would bring us down to 7. And then we got to figure out between like Conquerors and Blood Ritual what that last other cut is. I think that's where we're at. So on to our spells. Let's go take a look at our spells. So we only had 2 spells available to us in Power. In Gambits. So that's already kind of gross. And this one needs a crit. Yeah, we're definitely not taking that 2 spells card. Are you kidding me? If cast, choose an enemy fighter within 4 hexes of the caster. That fighter is dealt 1 damage, then push that fighter up to 1 hex. This must take them closer to the caster. Devolve is a fun name for this, but this card costs way too much. There are other cards that do very similar already and cost a focus or a channel. Like, I think, not for a crit. Bestial Vigor, Gambit spell, 1 focus. If cast, friendly fighters have +2 move in the next activation. So we're at 4 move already, so we're really fast. It is friendly fighters, plural, in the next activation. We can entertain it. I don't think it's going to make it in. But what is cool about this is if we have refashioned reactions, so from either the upgrade refashioned reactions or refashioned priorities, then those are also going to get the movement speed bonuses here. GW fears spellcasting cows. Absolutely. 100%. That's what they're scared of. Let's see. Are there any restricted to wizard or to Draknar? Oh, Grashrak. Okay. So there's a spell attack. Yeah, so the only other source of spells was going to be from a spell attack upgrade. Ugh. Okay. Now, again, this is from a time where this is less a build like path in its entirety. So warbands these days are built with very clear build paths, whether that's one like very binary build path or kind of like 2 diverging build paths. Either way, they work in like a rivals scenario, right? So you can play a game, shuffle up, and you can play with the deck that you got for the faction that you got. That was not the case with these old warbands. They weren't designed that way. They were designed to be a toolkit to offer you little pieces for different build paths. So they're only offering a couple spells here because they're like, go take the rest from the universal pool if you want to score that card, or if you want spellcasting cows. But we're not going to give you any more. We're going to give you no more inches towards spellcasting. Okay, so back over to ploys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we have a full 8 from them. Was just curious. Baned Anger, +1 dice to the first range 1 or range 2 attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation. We're going to toss it in for now, because look at their fighter cards. We need the help. We might be able to tune it out. We might need to keep it in. +1 damage to the first range 1 or range 2 made in the next activation. We're going to keep it in. This goes more towards our aggro side of things. So this can go towards like accuracy if we need to just lay down shots. Bane Hatred is going to be doing more damage with our already accurate fighters. Combo them together. If you get them in the same hand and you think that's a good move. Berserk Bellow, choose an enemy fighter adjacent to a friendly fighter and push them up to 1 hex, and up to 1 additional hex for each wound token the friendly fighter has. Okay. I'd like having a card that can push the enemy. So we can charge somebody that we need to move off of an objective, and then if we're unsuccessful in driving them back, maybe because they're Voidcursed, or because we missed the attack, we do have a way to then push them off the objective. They're definitely going to, until they see our 2 glory surge, if they know we have it, they'll try to block it. So this can help with something like that. It can also help fix threatening presence positioning. If we're going into scoring and we've parked somebody next to another fighter that's near or on no one's territory, we can, change that equation, get them into no one's territory or out of it. So that could be really good. Blood Taunt, choose a friendly fighter. They are dealt 1 damage. Give them a guard token, plus 2 dice to the first attack action made by that fighter in the next activation. This is cool. I like this. So we do have a risk of being pinged down. So if we give this to, somebody who's only on 2 health, this could instantly make them killable. However, this isn't range dependent, so that's nice. And it does give them a guard token as well, and gives them like an extra chance towards staying alive if they were coming off of just dodge. I want to test it. We'll see if it makes it into the final build, but I'm intrigued. I wish I could give it to somebody on 2 dice, which is making me think that I'll eventually want to give it to Korsh. But I might not be able to wait until, Korsh gets inspired. Guard and plus 2 dice. Is that enough? It might not be enough. The plus 2 dice is attractive. Guard isn't really going too far, especially if we're putting on somebody who's Void Cursed. And obviously we're damaging ourselves. I'm not too worried, because if we're taking a hit for 2 damage, which is an average attack, it's killing us anyways. So why not be vulnerable at that point in time, outside of the fact that you could get pinged. So got to think about that. Bull Charge, the first attack action made by a friendly fighter as part of a charge action in the next activation, has an innate fury result. So we have 1 success on a charge made by a friendly fighter. That's really good, and that actually helps if Draknar ever gets inspired as well. Helps him out. So actually, so far, this is my favorite of the accuracy cards between Blood Taunt and Bane Anger. Kind of just getting a feel for what they have available to us. I think there's going to be a lot of cutting from those 3 cards yet. Skirmisher, reaction. Play this after a friendly fighter's move action, not as part of a charge action. That fighter can make a range 3+ attack action. So yes, we want to bring this. With this pairing, we have the refashioned upgrades that can grant us an additional attack mid-charge with another fighter, not as part of a charge action. Yeah. So it's the friendly fighter that's making a move action. It doesn't say not during a charge super action. It says not as part of one. So we can use this with our refashioned upgrades. That's cool. That's really cool. We want that. Vile Invaders, choose up to 2 friendly hunters and push them up to 2 hexes each. There we go. I was hoping they had something like this. I actually was pretty sure they had something like this. So far, the last 3 cards are my favorite. Vile Invaders, Skirmisher, and Bull Charge. And then we can always grab Bane Hatred for extra damage. Berserk Bellow is good too. But I think, you know what? Here, we're just going to go ahead and tune out these Bane Anger and Blood Taunt. If we need them, we can always come back to them. I don't think they're doing enough for us. Whereas all the other cards we've selected so far are doing great. So forced movements. Hold on, I skipped weight of numbers. +1 damage to the first attack action made by a friendly hunter in the next activation if there are 1 or more friendly supporting hunters. So how many of our fighters are hunters? Are they all? I think they're all. Oh, it's just these 4. Draknar's a brawler. So, made by a friendly hunter in the next activation if there are 1 or more friendly supporting hunters. Oh, so it's just those 4 helping each other out. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to pass on that one. So Violent Invaders is moving those 4 as well. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, we're going to have to pass on weight of numbers, I think. So force movements, choose a friendly Voidcursed fighter, make 1 move action with the chosen fighter. So that card's just good in general, but it's elevated if we happen into Skirmisher as well. That's really cool. Involuntary advance, choose a Voidcursed fighter, push the chosen fighter 1 hex. Fantastic. This can be us, this can be them, just as long as a Voidcursed fighter. Reshaping burst, choose a Voidcursed fighter, roll a magic dice for each fighter within 2 hexes of the chosen fighter. On a roll of focus, that fighter is Voidcursed. If you've heard me talk about this card before, it can be really hard sometimes to actually find success with this card because it's each roll, and it's not a roll of focus or crits. So it's a 33% chance instead of a 50% chance if it were to like include crit or just be based off of channel. And that's on each fighter that you're casting this on. It's really great when it goes off. You can spread the curse amongst your own fighters. You can spread the curse to their fighters, mix of both. Yeah, I don't know. I just wish that this card was more effective when I've used it in the past, and it hasn't been. So I'm tempted to pass on it. I know it's here. I can always circle back to it. I don't think we're going to have room for it anyways. It usually gets cut. It usually feels like an 11th or 12th card for me and then gets cut. Reshaping Demise. This is a trick we were going to talk about. So we're definitely taking Reshaping Demise. This is, use this during an enemy fighter's attack action after the deal damage step. If the target would be taken out of action, each fighter adjacent to the target is Voidcursed. So that's each fighter. And your fighter that's dying does not have to be Voidcursed already. And due to timing, so use this during an enemy fighter's attack action after the deal damage step. So we haven't seen out of action yet. An attack has not taken us out of action yet. If the target would be taken out, Void Curse each adjacent, so each fighter adjacent to the target is Void Cursed, right? So if you're getting killed by an adjacent fighter, then you're going to score Involuntary Interdiction if you react with that card. Score this immediately after a Void Cursed fighter's attack action takes the target out of action. It'll take you out of action after they've become Void Cursed, and therefore qualify as a Void Cursed fighter taking you out of action. Wellner is weighing in positively on Reshaping Burst here. I love Reshaping Burst. Hitting 4 in 1 was a highlight of quarter 2. And I think, yeah, so Reshaping Burst is a part of the build we did on the show, or reviewed on the show. I think, Wellner, you submitted, I can't remember if it was a fresh build or one that I critiqued. It was one I critiqued with Tech Doctor. It was one we talked about. So sometimes a little behind the scenes. Sometimes there will be decks that I really want to explore on the show, but I don't have time to do a fresh build myself, and also then like be able to play games and offer you a field report. And a field report is so important to the deck building process to me. Like, deck building does not end at the end of the fresh build session that we have together, right? You have to put these to trial. You have to test them out and see if they actually work as well as you thought, and think about what cards you could swap in and swap out. Like, putting something into practice will show you where the theory falls apart, and just really inform both what you decide to keep as well as what you decide to get rid of. Very important. And so every week isn't a fresh deck session. And this was a decision that I made on the show, I think 5 or 6 episodes in, once I realized, because I was doing week-to-week builds, that I really wanted to give each build some more time for me to field report with, so that I actually felt that I could do that for the show. And making good field reports is important to me. I'm restating what I've already said, but I was also learning that I was assigning myself homework, and so each week was not only did I build this deck, which this part I get to do over my lunch. I return to, I come from work, I return to work right after this, but then before the week is, or before I see you again, I have to play with this deck. Otherwise, there's no field report to offer. And so if life gets in the way, and I don't have a chance to play games that week, then what do I do? And if I'm only ever playing towards field reports, then I don't get to play any other decks. And if I'm not getting a chance to play other decks, I'm also like boxed in and not feeling as creative or being as informed. Like being able to explore things outside of the show then helps inform things for the show. So I'd be less informed, if I was just sticking to the builds I was making here. So longer tangent. Today's been filled with tangents, so I hope you're along for the ride on those. But it's really fun then when I'm talking to locals of mine, and they've really been enjoying the show and making me feel really good about the show, motivating me, and trying out the decks that I built and submitting decks. So when I'm talking to them, I really want to try this build sometime, and we talk about like why. And Wellner and I, we're both like, I think there's something here. Wellner tosses it together and is like, here you go, review it on the show. Well, now I get to review it on the show during a session B. And like it might have been a while before I got to get to it in a session A. So I get to interact with decks in different ways depending on if we're on a session A like this week or a session B. And it's really fun when like those stars align and I get to review things that we're collectively excited about. The Cunning Crew plus Rhymelock Relics was another one like that. Chat was here. Yeah, Wellner was confirming that was a session B that I critiqued it. And Spinnerite, thanks for joining, Spinnerite. That's not something I had realized with Reshaping Demise. Great info. Yeah, I love that about Reshaping Demise. This card is quite tricky. It offers really good utility because especially if you can die in a group setting and Voidcursed either more of them or more of your own, and really raise your counts towards Reshaping Realm or uncounted costs, or whatever it is that you might need. Even just getting more Voidcursed fighters in the mix to start qualifying for things like your Lashed into Motion. So this is a pretty pivotal card to, I think, Voidcursed builds in general. And Reshaping Snare, choose a fighter on an objective or in a snare hex. That fighter is Voidcursed. So this is a card that was really hot for the longest time, and I haven't seen always, like it used to be, you're playing against Voidcursed, this card is in their deck. And that's for good reason. This is a great card. But I don't see it in every Voidcursed deck these days, and that's interesting. We're going to slot it in here. We're going to try it on for size as we're figuring out what's ultimately going to make it into the deck. But there's a lot of utility here in the sense that you can Voidcurse your own fighters or their fighters with it, and your threat on where you can Voidcurse becomes global. It's any objective that somebody's standing on, or snare hex. And snare hex is an interesting thing to keep in mind with the popularity of Hungarian Parasite at this time, because you have Hungarian Parasite fighters that will intentionally put themselves on a snare hex, or at least move through a snare hex so that they can score Deadly Influence. It's one of their easiest surges. Well, if that route ends them on that snare hex, or they get pushed into it, or what have you, then all of a sudden that fighter is void curseable. So that's that could be beneficial to you. Sentinel Imperative. Let's see. Spinnerite, you mentioned DKK2. I'm painting them while watching you right now. Awesome. That's one of the builds that, I've talked about this before, but there are builds that are explored in the show one way or another. that end up staying in my pack and seeing more exploration from me, just because like they really clicked with me in some way, or there's more I feel I want to learn and do there. And the Cunning Crew deck is definitely one of them that still sits in my bag, which is almost a little obnoxious because I have two Rhymelocked Relics decks in my deck right now, Skaiths and the Cunning Crew, and I can't pull them apart and make a third Rhymelock Relics deck because I'm still playing with those two. Which is just problems of my own creation, right? Like I could say like, all right, this week I don't need my Chillblain Hunt deck, or I don't need the Brain Freeze Crew. Like I can forego them this week. I can toss together this other deck, but that's just not where I'm at. So I'm seriously considering maybe buying a third Rhymelocked Relics deck, which is insane. So I shouldn't do that, but I might. Who knows? I just have a love for Rhymelocked Relics right now. So Sentinel Imperative. Rolls of dodge are successes in Voidcursed Fighters' defense rolls. This effect persists until the end of the round or until another domain gambit is played. So I don't think that this card does enough compared to what we're going to be doing with the when you stack it up against what the other gambits that we're adding can give you. We're on one dice, and this does increase our defense. Sure, absolutely. For our Voidcursed Fighters, it increases it by one facing, so we move up from shields and crits to shields, crits, and dodges. So that gets us up to a 66% chance on each of our dice. However, I just don't know if being on one dice is enough. This might be a really good place to test that, because that's all we're really ever going to have on these fighters. But at the same time, I don't think this card does enough. Normally, like if you have like a 4 health Voidcursed fighter, I'm not even thinking about it because I have health that they can chew through, and I get to manage that aspect. Here, the reason I'm like hemming about it a little bit is because we have so many fighters with low health that I'm like, do I increase the chance of them dying or defending? But a lot of the times, if 2 dice are coming in successfully against you, no matter how many we're thrown to get there, like you need that crit. And so Sentinel Imperative can't change those odds for you, which is why I really don't like it. Like if this was a reroll for Voidcursed Fighters defense rolls while this persists, then I think we'd be slotting it in for sure. And Wellner's making fun of me because not making fun of me, enjoying my insanity. One of us, don't look at me and my 3 sets of Exiled Dead models. Unbearable Energies. Choose an enemy fighter adjacent to one or more Voidcursed fighters. Deal 1 damage to the chosen fighter. So this is going to get us some guaranteed damage down anytime we see a Voidcursed fighter adjacent to a fighter we want to damage. This can be their Voidcursed fighter, right? Choose an enemy fighter. This is going to be the one taking the damage adjacent to one or more Voidcursed fighters. It doesn't actually care who the Voidcursed fighter is. So you can be dishing damage to one of their own when they're hanging out next to each other, thinking that they might be safe. And really, that Voidcursed fighter has actually just given you a window to get damage down. Unbearable Energies is really good. Because, what I just described is niche. Generally, it's you getting into that position and then damaging them. But being able to flex into an extra damage at will is really good. Vanguard Imperative, +2 move to each Voidcursed fighter. After a Voidcursed fighter makes a move action, stagger that fighter. And this effect persists until the end of the round or until another domain gambit is played. If we really want to lean into dying, we could consider this. But that stagger is brutal. It also means that we can't delve. I don't know how much delving we're going to be doing, but once you're staggered, you can't delve. Or if you cannot be staggered, you cannot delve. I'm going to put it in just because that move might help us get to safety. and might stretch our reach. Voidcursed Assault. I want to take this for sure. Each friendly Voidcursed fighter makes the following attack action. Reactions cannot be made during this attack action. So this is Reshape. Attack range of 1, 2 hammers, and 1 damage. Reshape, if this attack action succeeds, the target is Voidcursed. One of the reasons we want to bring this is it's another way to get Voidcursed in to occur. And then the other reason is just because being able to make attacks out of sequence is generally really good. And so, this is potentially damage and a Voidcursed fighter. And you get this attempt, in as many spots as you can make adjacencies really happen. And then Zealot Imperative. Domain, +1 dice to friendly Voidcursed fighters' attack actions. This will probably win out over some other cards in here. This effect persists until the end of the round, or until a successful attack action is made by a friendly Voidcursed fighter, or until another Domain Gambit is played. This I would say is better than Bane Anger, and I would say is probably better than Blood Taunt in the long run. So yeah, at least in this build. Something like Blood Taunt, I was thinking about some more. This works better in like a Passive Prophecy build with them, where you kind of get some benefit and you can damage them and get like held in Bloody Fist, something like that. But Zealot Imperative is going to be persistently with +1 dice until we make a success. So that's nice. You never see that plus dice go to a waste just because it missed. We only have to trim 3 out of Gambits. I think that'll be pretty easy, especially once our upgrades help inform our game plan a little more. So, on to our upgrades. I want to start with... No, I want to start with theirs. Alright, so Blinding Attack. So range 3 attack here. We'll take a look at it, but I think we're going to pass. This attack action has +1 damage when it targets an adjacent enemy fighter. That's hilarious. I just really enjoy that. So Oshkar. So he already has a range 3 attack. We're giving him some extra accuracy and some extra damage on it. Initially, I'm tempted to pass because of the fact that we're spreading the Voidcursed around, and if it gets to him, then he's not able to make this attack. But I'm thinking about bringing it for 2 reasons. One, if we dangle him and he dies, this becomes a draw 1. And if we're not Voidcursing him and keeping him around, it does get his damage up without reducing his range. So we'll consider it. It doesn't really go towards our objectives. Like, I can't draw a line from our objectives to this card. So that could be a consideration when we're looking to potentially cut things. Blood Crazed. +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attack actions if this fighter has 1 or more wound tokens and or is adjacent to a fighter that has 1 or more wound tokens. And or is adjacent to a fighter that has 1 or more wound tokens. Okay, so it could be... So +1 damage against a wounded target is probably what it's going to be that you're attacking adjacently. And there's more flexibility to that wording. But if this fighter's rocking their own wound token, that's some plus damage. All right, and I see the Blood Ritual connection here, or whatever that card was called. That what was it? That's damaging yourself. Blood Taunt? Yeah, so Blood Taunt is pretty great with this, because you're getting +1 damage and then +2 dice. It's still not worth taking the both of them and hoping for the combo. But I like Blood Crazed. Blood Crazed can hang. Cursed Flint. So range 1, and then 3 Fury, 1 damage. Cleave. This goes to any hunter. So this is just a source of cleave for us. I think we can easily pass on that. We already have 2 sources of cleave, and we don't really need just an optional attack at 1 damage. Dogged Survivor. Reaction: after an attack action that targets this fighter and fails, push this fighter up to 2 hexes. This is Korsh. Interesting. We can explore this. So if we're not doing much with Korsh, then he's probably... Oh man, this would be so much better if it was a reaction. Not that I really want to spend too many more of our Gambit slots. But if this was a ploy, then it wouldn't be seen coming, and I would like that a lot. Because this is broadcasted, it's a little weird. We have to get it out, to get use of it, and then it could do nothing. We could take a hit, and then just this upgrade didn't do anything for us. Yeah, I think that kind of settles it. I think we'll pass on Dogged Survivor. It's really interesting. If he started on 2 dodge, I'd be more attracted to this. It's really a shame that none of them start on 2 dodge. Endless Hatred. Reaction. After this fighter's attack action that takes an enemy fighter out of action, this fighter makes another attack action. You can only use this reaction once per round. Takes an enemy fighter out. This fighter makes another. Oh, ho, ho. On Gnarl. All right. We got a lot of restricted cards. What are the chances that Gnarl is able to take somebody out? Oh, boy. Okay. We're going to put it in because it could potentially get us 2 attacks, but and we could always dangle him and turn this into a draw card. But I don't necessarily think that's great. We need some more plus damage stuff. +1 wounds, Heedless of Pain, Draknar or Murgoth. So this is putting Draknar up to 4. That's really good. Or Murgoth up to 4. Yeah, I mean, those are some pretty key fighters for us. I'm down for that +1 wounds. Jabbing Spear, +1 range to this fighter's short spear attack action. Murgoth and Korsh. Ooh. I like that. This is definitely going in. This helps with our positioning quite a bit. We're able to make attacks from range 2. Savage Bolt. So range 3 focus based on a wizard level, 1 damage. Knockback 1 on a critical hit. This attack action has +1 damage. This goes on Fellhoof. Fellhoof is one of our Voidcursed candidates, I guess. So if we ran this in our deck, we would have to never Voidcurse Fellhoof because we're essentially saying there's going to be an upgrade eventually that does nothing if we Voidcurse him. So we reduce kind of our flexibility with who we're Voidcursing in, like if things get rough or if we just need to spread the curse more. I think we have to pass on this. I actually like the knockback 1 and the critical or the Grievous 1 here. So I'm tempted, and you could always choose to start Grievousing your less hardy archers, but you might be put in a position where you're Voidcursing them earlier than you need to. And it would have been better to have been able to Voidcurse your leader, and you forewent it for Savage Bolt. So I think for now we're going to pass on Savage Bolt. Maybe I revisit it in the field report. Sorcerer's Trinket. You can re-roll 1 dice in the casting roll each time this fighter attempts to cast a spell. Nope, thank you. We're not taking any spells for you so far. I mean, maybe 1, but I think it's getting cut. It's in our ploys right now. In our power deck. When this fighter's attack action takes an adjacent enemy fighter out of action, gain 1 glory point. Draknar. Yeah, I mean, Draknar already can put damage down pretty strongly. So if we can elevate the glory he gets on bounties, that would be super, super worthwhile. I think it'd be really fun to get down to a game where like he's just taking heads and ekes out the win for us, and like the only fighter alive at the end. He probably won't be the only fighter alive. Most people are going to pile dive him until he's gone. They're going to recognize him as a threat, and he's going to be one of the first ones dead. But then I have a draw card, and that's okay too. But it'd be pretty cool if he did survive. A Wary Warrior. After this fighter's activation, if this fighter is adjacent to 1 or more fighters, push this fighter 1 hex. After this push, this fighter cannot be adjacent to another fighter. So I'm going to consider this. The reason I'm going to consider this is it could force charges from my opponent. Like, let's say I charge somebody, I miss one of these 2 swords attacks, and I want to move away from the fighter. I just tried attacking so that I at least force a charge from them if they're going to take down a 2 health fighter. I think there's play here. Is it the best card in that we're going to be taking? Maybe not. Maybe it gets cut. But I can see some value. Energy Converter, after this fighter's range 1 attack action, takes an enemy fighter out of action. Heal 1 this fighter, Voidcursed. Tempting to bring this and try to just keep Draknar alive. I think he's probably a pretty strong Voidcursed candidate early. Enervating Form. Use this after this fighter is the target of a range 1 or range 2 attack action. Give the attacker 1 charge token. Generally these days, giving a charge token is beneficial to the opponent. And like it's broadcast too. This card, the problem with this card is it's broadcast. If this was a secret, then you could pull 1 over on an opponent sometimes. If you had like an adjacency at the beginning of a round, they attack you and you could be like, boom, your fighter's charged now. And like you're not going to be able to activate them repeatedly, or you're at least going to have to, like let's say that's their only fighter left. Then you have to move before you're able to attack. Like your activations aren't going to go as far. That would make a Enervating Form better. But because it's totally broadcast here, it's actually just not very good at all. Refashion Priorities is amazing. This card lets you react to any move action or attack action at any time. So made by any fighter, as long as that fighter that made that move or attack action is not adjacent to this fighter. And afterwards, right? So you can actually be the recipient of an attack action. Another fighter's move. If that fighter is not adjacent to this fighter can make a move action that must end on a feature token. So you can be driven back by the opponent that just attacked you, maybe. But more often than not, this is going to be a fighter that's completely not involved in the attack that just occurred. And you get to move onto a feature token within your move range, right? This reaction cannot be used more than once per round. There's another card just like it, Refashion Reactions, where you have to move instead of getting to an objective, you're moving to be adjacent to 1 or more fighters. So just we're taking both of these, but just to recap for those who like kind of struggle with the wording here. So any move that any fighter makes, as long as it doesn't end adjacent to this fighter, the one with your refashioned upgrade, then the one with your refashioned upgrade can react and make a move. Priorities is going to be onto an objective or a feature token. Let me see, onto a feature token. And reactions is going to be making an adjacency after your move. And it could be with any fighter, the adjacency that you make. You can chain these. So if you have both of them out, then one fighter can react to the move that you did with the other one. So to play that out loud, enemy fighter makes a move. Maybe it's part of a charge. Okay. So enemy fighter makes a charge. They're charging into refashioned priorities over here. Okay. Well, refashioned reactions is a totally different fighter, different part of the board. After the move completes, you're going to react. You're going to react with refashioned reactions. You're going to move your fighter next to one of your other fighters. Doesn't matter who. You don't care. As long as it's not the one that's receiving the business end of this charge. Well, then guess what just happened? You just moved. And the fighter that just moved is not adjacent to your priorities fighter. You can now move your priorities fighter as a reaction to a feature token, and you're probably no longer getting charged. You just outmaneuvered the fighter that charged you. You only get to do this trick once per round. You've just tapped both of your refashioned upgrades because they're once per round uses. But you see how we were able to just chain them and get out of a charge that our priorities fighter was taking. So these are really good. Not only can together, if they're unspent, save you from a charge, one charge, They can also just help with some incredible movement tricks throughout the round. They can help you bring in support. One of the reasons why we're considering bringing some of these +2 moves is because it's to each. Bestial Vigor. If cast, friendly fighters have +2 move in the next activation, plural. So all of a sudden, anybody that's moving during the round is getting those benefits from priorities and reactions. We might actually keep that spell. It's kind of growing on me, but man, I'm gonna be sad when it doesn't go off. All right, on to Singular Reshaping. Instead of giving this card to a friendly fighter, you can pick an opponent. That opponent chooses a surviving fighter in their warband and gives this upgrade to that fighter. This fighter is Voidcursed. So we can hand this to an opponent. We don't have to. Don't forget that. You can always use this for yourself. You can always give this to one of your own fighters and they become Voidcursed. But if you want, you can hand this to an opponent. They become Voidcursed. And while they're Voidcursed, that might score you Surrendered Will. Now, the only time you don't want to hand Singular Reshaping over your opponent is when they already have a Voidcursed fighter. If they already have a Voidcursed fighter, they can hand this to the Voidcursed fighter and just double stack that status on the same fighter, and you didn't gain anything. So if you've already Voidcursed one of them, definitely give it to one of your own. If you're still needing to get one of them Voidcursed, go ahead and hand this over. Surging Power. When you give this upgrade to a fighter, pick one Grievous 1 to this fighter's range 1 or range 2 attack actions, or this fighter is Voidcursed. I love this card. Sometimes this card makes it in and Singular Reshaping doesn't, especially if I don't bring Surrendered Will. Surrendered Will kind of comes hand in hand with Singular Reshaping for me. But the fact that in the moment I can choose, do I need another Voidcursed fighter, or can I just go for the Grievous, is really cool. And our fighters do, if we ever get them inspired, get up to that 3 dice. And so if we're lucky enough to be inspired, maybe Grievous is the right answer here. Or maybe we have a really risky, like, be-all, end-all play, where if we can get Grievous out on 2 dice, we can, change the course of the game. I really like Surging Power. Thrallmaker. Now, if we keep Reshaped Realm, we definitely want Thrallmaker because it helps us spread the Voidcursed to the enemy fighters. And this is going to be anytime we deal damage. So we have to have a successful attack, and then after the deal damage step of this fighter's attack action, the target is Voidcursed. Technically, if they've done something to reduce our damage to 0, there's still a deal damage step, and so as long as our attack is successful and we're going through those steps, even if we're dealing 0 damage in the deal damage step, the target is going to be Voidcursed of our successful attack here. Unnatural Resilience. This card cannot be given to large fighters. -1 damage to a minimum of 1 to range 1 and range 2 attack actions that target this fighter. So we can reduce the incoming damage that a fighter is taking as long as they're already Voidcursed, because this can only go on Voidcursed fighters. If we don't have a Voidcursed fighter at that particular moment, you can salvage this if you don't want to hold on to it. So that's something to consider. And Unthinking Aid. This is a teleport that we're going to leave at home. At the start of a round, choose a friendly fighter that is a leader. Hunter, Quarry, Brawler, Assassin, and or Voidcursed. So any of those keywords there. Place this fighter in an empty hex adjacent to the chosen fighter, then break this card. It's cool. It's very rare where you build a deck that can facilitate this card, though. Because at the start of the round is... like if you draw it in round 3, this card does nothing for you. Right, so you have to draw it in round 1 or 2, and then you have to have like a meaningful teleport available, and sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. So it's interesting. I like it. I've put it into my Exiled Dead Voidcursed Thralls deck. It's been the only place that's actually felt like really good with this card, but we're gonna leave it here because like a lot of the time this is helping you get into like an aggro position. It can help get out of dodge, but I've used it for that. Even like in the Exiled Dead deck, I've used it on Diantelos, if I remember right. Yeah. I just moved Diantelos to a Voidcursed fighter, or to be adjacent to a Voidcursed fighter. So I've used it for that. I've also used it to just move zombies around so that I have like better like opening attacks. So there is play here, but only if you draw it in rounds 1 and 2, and that can be rough. That's definitely a point against the card, and then that weighs into your decision to take it. All right, so we're on to the trim. We have 18 minutes left in the hour, and I think this trim is going to be pretty straightforward. I don't think we're going to take Gathered Thralls. Where to start? Okay, so let's start in end phase, I think. So Unwitting Guardians, Voidcursed Fighter on an objective. So that's easy. We can do that. So we're thinking we need Voidcursed Fighters. We're thinking we just need to be holding objectives. Uncounted costs and survival of the fittest are going to help us as we die or we kill them. Either way. We just got to make sure that we can crank those numbers up to 4 or 5 respectively. Unceasing Imperatives. We have a Voidcursed Fighter with a move or a charge token. So like, hey, all on one player's team. So either all of the Voidcursed Fighters on my side, all of them on their side. So that could be one, right? And it could be the same one that's getting me Unwitting Guardians. I spent a card, maybe not even a turn, a refashioned priority, moved this fighter onto Unwitting Guardians, and they're also going to score me Unceasing Imperative because of the move that got them there. Like, these can be really easy. And they're also not really taxing our activations much. Most of this is not taxing our activations. I'm tempted to go for Reshaped Realm. Let's do it. Let's go super big, because like the only game plan we have is positioning, and so why not? We can always come back after the field report and say no, this wasn't the play. But for now, yeah, let's go for it, because we're either keeping Conquerors or Blood Ritual. I can see an argument for either, Blood Ritual being more passive, and we could just choose to focus strictly on positioning and survival. But let's put a little pressure on them, which will also help our numbers when it comes to uncounted costs and survival of the fittest. While we're putting that pressure on them, we'll go for Reshaped Realm. And then, because otherwise, well, let's look at what our glory total would have been too. So Bestial Cunning, I kind of want to cut. Oh man, do I want to cut Bestial Cunning? We'll talk more about that one next week, I'm sure, because it's staying for now. We're going to, well, maybe we keep Gathered Thralls. Score this immediately after an activation if your warband holds 3 or more objectives. Stampede, Involuntary Interdiction, Lash into Motion. Okay, so I like Surrendered Will. I like Lash into Motion. I like Involuntary Interdiction. So these 3 can stay. Lash into Motion is going to be a little hard. It's going to require some good card support. But like as far as Seed Glory goes, what's our Seed Glory look like? Involuntary Interdiction, so kill. Despoilers. Pretty much we want to mulligan for Despoilers if we can. Stampede, that's not bad. It's not successful attacks as part of charges. It's just charges. Let's see. Reshaped Realm. Look at you always coming back to me. Yeah. Okay, let's cut. Oh, man. We have so much push tech, but the opponent's activation step is what makes this hard. I know that makes this hard. I should not take this card. Yeah, let's not take this card, because let's focus more on Reshaped Realm. Like if we're gonna be pushing ourselves to work on a Voidcursed outcome, let's push ourselves towards Reshaped Realm, not situating Gathering Thralls. Maybe if we weren't taking Reshaped Realm, we'd consider Gathering Thralls to like try to flex our glory up, because right now we're looking at 19 glory, and we're probably giving 4 or 5 glory away in bounty over the course of the round. So we're going to have to be really mindful of their scoring and trying to counter their scoring. We will be bleeding glory for sure, and we don't have resurrection like the exiled dead do. Wellner. I think we can actually afford to remove... I almost want to bring back the raid card where 3 of us are in their territory. Was it rapid raid? Rapid raid feels like the name of a different card. Raiders from Gnarl Spirit Hunt or Gnarl Spirit Pack. Score this immediately after an activation if 3 or more friendly fighters are in enemy territory. N activation. It can be ours. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of Bestial Cunning. And we're gonna go for Despoilers, Raiders, and Stampede. We'll see if I regret this. Raiders, and the card I just pulled out that was looking for 3 gambits played. We're both pulling at my heartstrings quite a bit. Well, no, not heartstrings. I'm not feeling emotional about it, but I mean, like, they were pulling at that slot, both with like elements of distaste. Like, which of 2 evils am I bringing into the search slot? Okay, so knowing what our game plans are, which is highly positional, then that will help form the rest of the decisions. We do want to do a little bit of tag row. Like, we do want to kill fighters that aren't going to get Voidcursed, so bringing this +1 damage in is probably fine. We'll see if there's enough room for it, though, because it's only 1 activation, and you don't get it back if it's not successful. I think we have 2 or 3 domains in here. Let's get rid of... So we could, go for consistency purposes, go for Vanguard and Bestial Vigor. And try to be very movement-based. Actually, let me think about upgrades first. Yeah, let's think about upgrades. Unnatural Resilience can help us keep one of our Voidcursed fighters alive. Energy Converter maybe doing the same. Trophy Taker maybe helping push our glory up a little further through Draknar. I really like this card. This card's staying because I think he's going to have a huge target on his back. And if they take him out, I draw a card. If they don't take him out, then that's fine. I get a shot at extra glory. Jabbing Spear I really like. So these 2 I think are must takes here, just for this warband, not necessarily with this deck. +1 wounds is going to help Draknar or Murgoth, who are going to be our Jabbing Spear and our main Voidcursed candidates. So that's going to help with Unnatural Resilience. It's going to work against Energy Converter, though. So Jabbing Spear, Short Spear. Oh wait, what? Hold on. Who's the Short Spear? Oh, Murgoth and Korsh. Okay, cool. So that doesn't mess with Draknar. Okay. Endless Hatred. After this fighter's attack action that takes an enemy fighter out, this fighter makes another attack action. You can only use this reaction once per round. Yeah, we're gonna get rid of this. This isn't gonna do enough. Not from Gnarl. Sorry, Gnarl. You have been found wanting. Endless Hatred has made it to the like glitch itself into continued existence. When this has happened on the show before, it's become a part of the name of the deck. We'll think about Endless Hatred. I don't think that actually works really well here, but maybe it'll make it into the name. All right, so let's see. One of the things I like about Thrallmaker is we do have archers that can help with Thrallmaker, because Thrallmaker can be ranged. I don't hate blinding attack. Let's see what I like more, though. So Singular Reshaping helps our game plan more, specifically Surrendered Will, as well as potentially giving it to our own guys. Surging Power is great. A Wary Warrior, maybe not necessary. However, It could change that charge equation that we were talking about before. So okay. I'm I'm iffy on it, and we're looking to cut 3 cards, so it's probably going to be one that goes, because the rest stand. Like, sometimes it's not about does this card have a use case. It's does that use case come up enough and outvalue the other cards that you're bringing along. So I don't think it outvalues an extra damage. So this is an extra damage into already damaged fighters. Let's see. So Voidcursed Assault can actually get plus damage from this. If we run in, deal damage, and then go in and Voidcursed Assault. Yeah, so Bloodcray stays. A Wary Warrior, yeah, it's going to go. The rest stay, which means we just have to cut 2 from here. So I think I probably have to cut things that are more cute than good. And it's probably going to be Energy Converter because of the range 1 on Draknar, and it does have to be a kill. So how much is it really doing for him? And then Blinding Attack. Yeah, okay. So I like her tuning here. So then over to our Gambits. So Berserker Blow, or Berserk Bellow. Choose an enemy fighter adjacent to a friendly fighter and push them up to 1 hex. And up to 1 additional hex for each wound token the friendly fighter has. I don't know how much the additional wounds are really going to come up here. I just like the fact that this can help us situate 2 points off a threatening presence. I think that's pretty big. It can also mess with some positioning, and when we're void cursing people, we don't have too many ways to push. So I think Berserk Bellow gets to stay for sure with our current game plan. +1 damage, I want to keep it in, but we'll see. Bull Charge, absolutely. We're getting a success added to an attack, because this can be any friendly fighter, right? Yeah. Skirmisher. I like that this is a surprise. I like that this can be on our Thrall Maker. I think this is still really good. It might not be good enough. I think I'll get rid of Bane Hatred before I get rid of Skirmisher, though. Maybe that sounds weird. Force Movements, Involuntary Advance. I would like to keep both of these for all sorts of positioning shenanigans. We have so much that's based on positioning. Reshaping Demise, I want to keep because of Reshaped Realm and Involuntary Interdiction. I really don't think that, and even Surrendered Will. So I don't think that there's any rationale in getting rid of that. Reshaping Snare helps both sides of this. We're going to be holding at some point in time because we're going to try to get Despoilers. So that could be setting our own guys up to get into the Voidcursed race. Unbearable Energies, dealing a damage. You know what? I think our plus moves might have to go. We've got really good movement speed already, but we need to cut 4 cards yet from here. Yeah, I think we have to cut Vanguard Imperative. Wow. I don't so Bestial Vigor is gone. These last 2 cuts are going to be really tough. So I guess I don't like getting rid of Unbearable Energies, but we could consider it here. Actually, no, we're always going to keep Unbearable Energies over Bane Hatred, because Unbearable Energies is like a guaranteed damage, whereas Bane Hatred is something that we could miss. So that's gone. And Bull Charge is helping with accuracy. That's hard to justify getting rid of. We might need it for Involuntary Interdiction at some point in time. I guess it's an accuracy bump. We're kind of comparing Bold Charge to Zealot Imperative. Now, yes, this continues to work for us, but it's not a guaranteed success like Skirmisher is, and it's only going to work on a successful attack once. I think we can actually... One of the things that this helps with is Grievous. So that would be the case to keep it, is if we can combo it with Surging Power. So what do we value more? Like getting a success through or getting a better shot at getting Grievous through? And I think we're going to go for the guaranteed success here. That's the play. I wish I could have kept in some plus movement, and we'll explore that a little bit later, like plus move speed. The pushes in here are going to help a little bit with that. Overall, I think we got a decent deck to give a go. Alex, if you're watching, I'm hoping that you're going to give this a go with me. Even if you're not watching, you'll be hearing about it later this evening. When we go grab dinner together with the gals. Oh man, did I burp right into the microphone? I'm so sorry. Okay, let's wrap this episode. So, Endless Hatred, always another foe, always another quarry. The bloodletting in Beastgrave is never ending. There's not enough on this card to wrap it into a clever name, I don't think. Like, nothing about this card is bringing this warband forward in my mind. Maybe Quarry is something that we can play off of. We could call this Voidcursed. I mean, I don't want to really put Voidcursed super directly in the title. Let's go with... I kind of want to... I don't know why, but Baytrid, like Bay and Hatred, is in my brain. Like, like, the fated Baytrid, or the fated, I don't know, the Void, Void Quarry? Void Quarry Stampede? Stampede does feel... particularly them. I feel like we can put Stampede in here, and that will feel like a Grashrak Despoiler card. So I guess with that in mind, we could call this Void Hatred Stampede. Stampede of the Void Hatred. That's such a long name. Endless Void Stampede. All right. There's something in there. Let's see. I wish, like, it's not feeling as clever as I'd like it to. I like Bellow. Bellow of the Void Stampede. It might be the longest name yet. Bellow of the Void. How do I spell Stampede? Is it 2 E's before the D? Oh no. Cancel. Oh, I had it right the first time. Unless they have it wrong. They spell defense differently than we do. They being GW and we being just US English. Bellow of the Void Hated. Bellow of the Endless Void. That's so edgy. Okay. Well, anything in chat? Wellner, you got something hot? Something for the Stampede? Let's see. We could call it the Hate Cursed Stampede. Yeah, we'll do that. Hate Cursed Stampede. Cursed Stampede, Bellowing Cursed Stampede. Cursed Stampede. Stampede of the Void. Stampede of the Void. The Bellow Void? The Void Bellow? Stampede of the Void Bellow? Void Bellow. Should just be called Void Bellow. Stampede of the Void Bellow. Stampede of the Void Bellow. Done. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out. I definitely got to go. To wrap up, we're going to do the outro. The outro is going to first just be a thanks again to the two individuals that reached out to me. Again, that was Caiaphas Kane and Krebel. Means a lot to be able to take what people want to see and put it into the show. It's really what makes the show what it is. So if you too would like to request a build or have a deck list you'd like reviewed on the show, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. It's as simple as just letting me know in the comments below. You can email me at whatthedeckscast. So that's just whatthedeckscast, C-A-S-T, at gmail.com. Or you can find me on Discord. Best way to get onto our Discord is to go check out themortalrealms.com. There's a link to our Discord there, and you can check out all the Mortal Realms has to offer, including the What the Hex podcast, the story phase. There's a lot ramping up with Age of Sigmar 4th edition on the rise. And you can see this deck and any that we build on the show at Battle of Mallet's Nemesis Library. Definitely check that out. I always have a link in the show notes. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you next week. I've been Skylar, and this has been What the Decks.